Cindy, would you like to lead us in the pledge? Thank you.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda and change item 3A to superintendent's evaluation.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, agenda passes. Thank you very much. Dr. Breggy.
There was no action in closed session this evening.
Ms. Crosshauer, any cards come in? Okay, thank you. He says with a cheer in the back of his mind. Okay, consent calendar. Since I have these letters, I will make this motion to approve. Ms. Crosshauer, the revised on these is already posted, right? On the reports
Yes.
that you handed?
It does, the certificate, it does not say revised, but she has revised them. They were posted.
Okay, so do I need to pull that one then, I guess, right?
You should probably pull.
I'll pull them both, okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar minus items B1, B2, D, G, H, and J.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the revised certificated personnel report, item 8B1.
Can you point out the difference between the one we saw? Is there one specifically that was different?
Yeah, can I just get a
I'll
second,
second.
please? Thank you very much. Okay, now we can ask the question. Thank you.
Can you point out what
Yeah.
is different than the one that I saw at home?
Yes, there was a name revision on line 5.
Okay,
That's it.
And I believe that was it.
that was it?
Oh, there was also a correction.
That's what possible?
There was a correction on the, an extra assignment thing, right, with the, there was another correction, because you had pointed out to me a correction. One sec. With the talent show. There was a
Right,
correction with
there was
that.
There was also
duplication.
an item that was removed
Right.
due to some incorrect information that was on the PAF.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. That carries. Item B2, I'll make a motion to approve the classified personnel report revised.
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
What was the difference? Yeah, could you explain what the difference was, why there was a revision, please?
I said there was an extra leave of absence. I thought there was only 2 before, but maybe not. I'll repeat it. Go ahead.
It was, the last line was added, I believe, student services needs subs. Line 133.
What number?
133.
So it was 133
Line 133 was added.
adding
Okay.
a
Okay.
substitute item.
Okay.
It is, but it's not. I don't think you can hear me though.
It was, okay. Mrs. Marcus, you got the clarification on that?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
All
Thank
right,
you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Item D.
Now I have to just be pulled.
Can we get a motion for discussion, please?
I approve. A second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Thacker, seconded by Mrs. Marcus. Thank you. Mr. Spitz?
Yeah, it's working. Is it working?
Yeah, it's working.
We had last year, it seems to me, an unexpected loss of students who were coming out of 8th grade and possibly 9th, 10th, and 11th. We had an unexpected loss. And it seems to me that if we go for a new demographic study to forecast, unless we poll those families to find out why they were leaving, it seems without that data that I wonder whether we're going to come up with any kind of data that's reliable.
Mr. Spitz, I can answer that for you. So we did have to wait a period of time, 2 weeks into the school year, before we actually officially dropped students from the attendance. And so what we're doing now is we have that information, the people that did not show up, and so we will be surveying those individuals and trying to get a hold of them to find out why they did not either let the district know that they weren't coming back, or what choice, if they moved or if they selected another school. But we are looking into that information right now.
So then if we get that information, hopefully we can sort of relate that to the demographic study and make more sense out of it. Okay.
Question, how many did we actually, thank you, how many did we not actually have returned? Do we have that number?
Not off the top of our head, but we can certainly let you know.
Are you done, Mrs. Marcus? So I have a question, a parallel question to Mr. Spitz's question. I know that our enrollment numbers were on the uptick for some grades, and so my question is, do we know where those students came from, if they were from private school or if they moved, across the country? Or it'd be good to know, because that's good information to have. If you don't have it, that's fine, Ms. Chisholm. I just want to know sometime.
A lot of people are moving into the district. It is. From outside of the city and outside of the attendance area, so move-ins. I can go back and track how many possible students came back from private school,
That would be great.
because we do get we have to track the information when they enroll. So I can look that up and give that information to the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Spitz, anything else on this? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Item G.
Move approval of professional services agreement with Mary Montague.
I'll second for discussion. Go ahead.
I asked that be pulled. I'm wondering whether by offering yoga and mindfulness practice for the beginning grades at Horace Mann School, but not at our other schools, or school as it is this year. Is this in line with our efforts to give our students the same opportunities throughout the district?
I can actually answer that, Mr. Spitz. Is exactly that. It's nice that Craig's actually in the crowd, but Craig and Sarah have worked very collaboratively over just even the last 3 weeks, just since the start of school. So this isn't not possibly going to be offered to Hawthorne. It's just the TK Kinder at Horace Mann are already set and ready for the schedule to be able to get Mary into the classroom. And then again, we'll be working with Sarah to be able to offer and then encourage the TK and Kinder to take advantage of this opportunity at Hawthorne as well.
My point is, and I understand that this is being financed by the Horace Mann PTA, but it seems to me that we want to offer the same opportunities to students throughout the district.
I want to jump in here and say I completely agree with Mr. Spitz. I absolutely think that yoga should be offered as an alternative to PE all the way up through grade 12. So to the extent that we can do that, or at least make this a rollout instead of just an isolated school, I would love to look at that.
And I just got corrected that Hawthorne does offer Mary at Hawthorne as well. Their contract just hasn't come through yet. So we do, Mr. Spitz, offer at both. And just as an FYI too, we also had Mary come and do staff mindfulness as well at one of our opportunities, just to be able to, right after last year's negotiations, to kind of clear our minds as a group. So she does work and support not only our beginning grades, but all the way up. And it is primarily focused right now for TK Kinder, but I'm not opposed to exploring the opportunity of, middle school. You and I had a conversation offline as well.
Yeah, I think it would be great to consider, even if it's only for next year, in light of the fact that we have dance as an alternative for PE at the middle school this year, and bring it to the middle and high school for next year. I think that'd be amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, we have been adamant about this for a while, about opportunities at sites. We should be prepared as a district that if somebody moves in and, let's say, a particular grade level at their home school is filled and they have to attend the other school, that all of the same opportunities would be available to them. It does not matter what school you go to. That's hopefully the end game here. So I know sometimes it's a little slow to build that, but in going through and looking at the loose ends of the reconfiguration, this is something we need to keep track of. So
Absolutely. So just to be clear though too, is through district funding, we have not purchased anything for one site
Right.
specific. Everything has always been equitable and accessible to all students across the district. It is one of those things that we are working with our PTAs to ensure that when and if they're bringing proposals to either Craig or Principal Bugby or Principal Kaber, that they're meeting, and they actually, not only we consult together as a group, us three, but they're consulting consistently throughout the week as well, to make sure that there is that equity and accessibility amongst both campuses.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item H.
I move approval of co-teacher training CSUN.
Thank you.
I'm the one that pulled that.
Yes.
A couple questions that I had was a little better clarification of this program, if possible. And then I looked at the fact that this is for the middle school and the high school, and I wondered if there was a plan for the elementary school also for something like this.
Sure. So this is through CSUN. They have a whole unit there that focuses on co-teaching, the best practices for co-teaching, and supporting districts in their implementation of co-teaching. We've had co-teaching for many, many years. What we're looking at doing is fine-tuning what we're doing to improve it. So looking at how we plan, how we prepare for our students. It's also there's also a component of walkthroughs and coaching with this, where we do the 3-hour training and then the staff comes back and we do walkthroughs through the classrooms and actually work with the individual co-teaching pairs to help fine-tune what they're doing. So this is to refine what and improve what we're already doing.
Well, the reason that I brought it up is because while I was teaching, I did some co-teaching, and I was very familiar with it, and there are points about it where it can be very, very good, and there can be some very, very negative things about it. So I'm
Exactly.
hoping that if we're going to do some co-teaching, that it will address more of the negative than the positive, because I think
Yes.
it can be good, but from what I saw for the most part, was not very positive.
Right. So it will look at things like common planning time, how the teachers work together, looking at who does what, the pieces that kind of get lost in the shuffle, if you will, to help fine tune and improve and raise the bar as to what we're doing with co-teaching. And as far as elementary, yes, but it's a different animal. So
I
different
understand that
schedule,
now. Yes, I
different
get that.
different way of implementing. So yes, we will look at it for elementary, but I really wanted to start with the middle school and the high school because that's where we have the largest amount of co-teachers, and also moving forward, preparing our middle school students for high school.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on H? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Last one is J. Can I get a motion, please?
I move ratification of purchase order report number 4 for 2019-2020.
Second.
Thank you very much.
I ask this item be pulled.
Okay.
I want to ask Mr. Roach a few questions about items in this purchase order. Mr. Roach, I have noticed 3 items in here, and there are probably more, but I noticed 3. One of them, purchase order 40092, to some organization by the name of WOLF for $17,700. Purchase order 16140S to an individual, Aneta Sebalda, for $89,200, and purchase order number 17001S to the same person, Aneta Sebalda, for $63,800. If I read this correctly, and maybe I didn't, the only explanation of these purchase orders is miscellaneous. And I'm wondering, it seems to me that those are pretty significant amounts to be given to the board to approve as miscellaneous items. And I'm just wondering whether I should be expected to approve miscellaneous items in those amounts.
Trustee Spitz, in the future, we'll make sure that there's a better description of these items. I'm trying to see right now, I think a description of these items were sent to the board under separate cover later based on board questions. And some of the folks may have to jump in here and help me with this, but I believe the Wolf was some training that happened in August.
The Wolf training, that was the, it was held at Beverly Vista Middle School, and that was the for the students to participate in some of the training and relationship building.
It was orientation, right? Before
Yes.
the school year started, for the 6th, 7th, and 8th
It was the 6th, 7th, and 8th.
17,000?
Yes.
No, that was 17,000, the Wolf.
17,000?
Yeah.
And I believe the other 2 purchase orders are carryovers from prior year, where a purchase order is not completely spent, and the purchase order is just rolled into the next year.
What I'm suggesting is if it would be possible, where there are significant amounts like this, whether it would be possible to give some better description than miscellaneous.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Because otherwise, what I'm doing is I'm rubber stamping something I absolutely don't understand.
Most certainly.
Do these have to do with construction, these
Depends
amounts?
what number it was on.
The 2 that Mr. Spitz are asking about, the Aneta Zabala, because one mentions the high school, but the other mentions El Rodeo, and those happen to be
okay.
the 2 sites.
I'm going to answer your question. Aneta Zabala is the art restoration contractor for El Rodeo and the high school. So when we voted to restore the murals at El Rodeo and the high school, that's who that is. Yay, Google. Yeah, it should be out of the, yeah, 21.
I have no other questions.
Okay.
I asked about something called Ideals, which was around $8,500, had something to do with interiors. Is that decorating? I didn't know what that was. It was in the purchase order called Ideals, EYEDEALS, and it said something about interiors.
Trustee Marcus, we'll have to get back with you. I don't know off the top of my head what that
I
is.
know I put that on the list to look up, and I
Okay.
didn't get an answer on
Okay,
that.
staff
Thank
will
you
get
very
back
much.
with you.
Okay, anything else on that item? Okay, colleagues, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion. Okay. Mrs. Marcus, was that a late aye or were you opposed? Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, superintendent's report. Before we go into that, I had forgotten to pull one item. I'm not pulling it back on the floor to a vote, but I do want to just take my prerogative for comments. There was the BHEF naming list on there. Cindy, do you mind coming up for a second? I had a couple of questions, and I just want to ask them. Sorry. I noticed that you have a lot of items for Hawthorne on the list. Is it premature to put that on the list, not knowing what the construction will bring at that site?
We went to the schools over the summer, walked all of them except the high school. These were ones that we found the additions were things that were current that were not on our previous list that we thought should be added. If there is a time frame that you have for us, that you think that things are starting sooner rather than later, we can look at that. But we did want to be able to provide a comprehensive look at what's now available, since some of the district has been reconfigured and moved around, and we did see some opportunities to get things started. And if they were going to be just temporarily set aside, then we would be back online. Then I don't know why we wouldn't pursue them and at least leave them on the list right now.
I only say that because we don't know yet what is happening with the structure at Hawthorne. We have preliminary plans, but those are on hold right now. The auditorium is probably going to stay, obviously. Some of the older building, yes, will probably stay for historic reasons, but the two flagging north and south buildings might be up for complete demolition, rebuild, whatever. So I just want to be sure, will your namings come back for approval on a case-by-case basis?
Yes,
Anyway?
yes, they do.
Okay.
And that's much of what at the middle school, since there was some things that were changed around to make it appropriate for a middle school versus a K-8. That's why there are some additions on here and some changes with regard to how things are named. And we also have had people interested in El Rodeo as well prior to it actually going offline. And so we still have those available. And so we've just felt like until we know with 100% certainty exactly what's staying and what's going, we should go ahead and provide what's available now and discuss in the future whatever changes may come.
No, I think there was some stuff on the list that I completely agree with. I thought some stuff was a little overkill, but I don't know if that's going to really come in for it, but you've kind of put everything on there, and I understand that. So as long as the board is going to be looking at these on a case-by-case basis, I don't have a problem with that.
Yes.
I think that there are discussions about shade structures at BV in the future, so those should be on the list. Or for
I agree
consideration.
100%.
So-
Shade structure, shade is very
so,
important on
yes.
our playgrounds.
So I wanted to bring that up, and I had forgotten to pull the item for comment. So thank you for addressing those issues. And
One of the things we did this summer too was take photographs so that we can actually put photographs online. I'd like to have a lookbook so that people get a better idea of exactly what does it mean when we say you're naming a bench or a tree or a shade structure.
all right, I appreciate it. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Breggy.
So this is the first time this last week since I've been here, almost 3 years, where I had a chance to really go into some of our classrooms and talk with some of our teachers and our administration. And so I have had a huge smile on my face. It's a big part of the job that I've missed, and I really look forward to continuing to do that and to learn more about what's happening in our schools and the curriculum that's happening across the district. Last night was the College Connections Fair, and it was just a great turnout, and I really appreciate the work that Casey Rowley has put into that event, the number of college reps that we get, the parents that came out to serve dinner before the college reps took their places. It's a really big event with a lot of behind-the-scenes work. And it was just really well attended, and it was really, really nice to see students with their parents and having conversations about what that post-secondary next step is for each of our families. And I'd also like to just put out a congratulations to our new assistant principal at Horace Mann, Samantha Young, who went through a couple of different interview rounds. It's worth the wait. I believe. She's a very strong candidate, and I think that she's going to be a really nice addition to the staff. So we welcome her.
Mr. Bugby is smiling in the back, so.
Yes, he is.
And I guess I want to thank Mr. Regan and Mr. Bugby for steering the ship over there until help arrives, basically. So thank you. Didn't hear a peep out of it from either of you, and I appreciate all the extra work you both have been doing. So, Thomas? College-bound Thomas, we're going to call you now.
Yeah. So earlier today, Beverly Vista Middle School, they hosted their first club day, which offers students with more opportunities to engage and explore their interests. There are 17 clubs that are offered to middle schoolers. On the same note, 2 days after our last board meeting, the high school had club day, which took place on the third floor patio where the College Connections Fair was. Thank you. All new and returning clubs of the high school set up their posters and encourage students to join their respective clubs. This is one of the best lunchtime activities of the school year. But I just wanted to highlight one club that I'm very passionate about, and that is the club By Your Side. By Your Side Club entails a group of students that promote tolerance and provide companionship to kids with special needs. September 5th was the first meeting of By Your Side and was once again an awesome lunchtime with many new faces and members. So about the pictures, last Thursday I was able to help coach and see the middle school sports program in action. I'm so excited and slightly jealous that I didn't have it, but nonetheless very happy that it is available to students.
We could send you back there.
Yeah. So first up, this is girls volleyball, and then there's Coach Waters, and Coach Park is somewhere running around. And this is cross country, doing squats. Here's another cross country picture. Cross country. And here's them running across the. And then here's the large flag football team warming up.
That's amazing.
And there's Coach Reitzenstein putting together a play. And this is the 6th grade group. There's some 7th graders. And there's my brother. Here's some more 6th graders. And then, so those are just some pictures that I took.
Soccer right now?
No, soccer is not in session right now. And then finally last night, Miss Rowley put together an awesome college fair with college reps from over 80 schools, along with 2 presentations in here from speakers regarding highly selective admissions and financial aid. And it was an incredible event. And it was awesome to see many board members in attendance at the College Connections Fair, so that was nice to see.
I came for the free stickers. Exactly. Colleagues, business and finance, A, rejection of claim. So have a motion, please.
I move for the rejection of claim number 574492.
I second.
Kenny.
Thank you, Ms. Marcus and Ms. Walker-Schuman. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. 10B, let's just make a motion. Are you presenting?
Yes.
After the motion?
After motion.
Perfect.
I will move.
For approval of the 2018-19 unaudited actuals.
Second.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Marcus and Mr. Spitz. Mr. Roach, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Very quickly, want to go over the unaudited actuals report. That's the actuals from last year. Before I get started, I just want to shout out to Angela and the Business Services Department. They work all summer to create the unaudited actuals, to actually close the books. So without their work during June, July, and August, when many folks are away for the summer, they're doing all this hard work. So just a shout out to that department. So very quickly, we're going to go through a lot of this. The unaudited actuals are really actuals, or not projections, or not budget. You only get actuals really twice a year. You get it unaudited actuals in September, and you get the audit report in December or January. When we do the adopted budget and the first and second interim reports, those are projections. But tonight, it's all about actuals for the most part. So we're going to go through this. This is the general fund from last year. Let's see if this works. We have 3 columns here. We have the unrestricted, the restricted, and the total. So here we have the beginning balance from last year, which was about $8 million. We have the revenues that came in, unrestricted, restricted, and the total. Then the expenditures. So you'll see in total last year in the general fund, we had $73 million in revenue, $71.7 million in expenses. So if you look at the total operations, and if you have a hard time doing math, you can just take B minus C. Here it is right here, all spelled out for you, to get $12 million in operating surplus in the unrestricted, $11 million in deficit in the restricted, for a total surplus of $1.5 million in the general fund. We did have a contribution out of the general fund into the food service program of $282,000. So when you look at all the operations of the general fund last year, you started out with $7.9 million. You had an operational surplus of $1.5. You had a transfer out of $282,000. So you ended the year with $9.2 million, which is a gain in the fiscal year of $1.2 million. Okay? That's the general fund. Looking at it a little more granularly, we'll see that last year, every dollar of revenue, when we look at each dollar, every dollar, 71 cents of each dollar was from local property tax. Other state revenue make up about 6 cents of each dollar. Washington, D.C. gives us 2 cents of each dollar. And local revenue is 21 cents of each dollar of revenue that came in for the district last year in the general fund. So this is the biggest number, of course, is our local property tax. And that's been going up quite substantially over the last couple of years. You'll see that in 16-17, it was $42.9 million, 17-18, $47.7, and last year it went up to $52.1 million. So this is a big driver in our current budget cycle. So on the expense side of the ledger, of course, you guys all know that salary and benefits make up the biggest portion of each dollar that's spent. So of each dollar that's spent, 59 cents of it goes to salary, 23 cents goes to employee benefits, so that's about, 82 cents of each dollar spent goes to our staff. 3 cents of each dollar spent goes to books and supplies, and 15 cents goes to other services like insurance, utilities, and professional services. So about 83 cents goes towards salary and benefits. That's a little bit below the state average, but when you look at this year's budget, we get up to about 85, 86%. Okay? So in the general fund, looking at us, Beverly Hills Unified, compared to the state of California average, and these numbers are from the CDE, back in 15-16 per student enrolled, we spent about $14,000, almost $15,000 per student. The state average was $10,700. And you can see over the last few years that amount has increased. The last year in which we have state of California numbers was 17-18, where the district spent $17,409 per enrolled student, and the state of California spent $12,000 per enrolled student. Last year, we as a district spent just over $19,000 per enrolled student. Because our revenue has been higher than our expenditures in the general fund the last couple of years, we've had an increase in our ending fund balance. So our ending fund balance in the general fund was $7.9 million in 17-18, and then in 18-19, because we did have that surplus, it went to $9.2 million. If you look back into 15-16 and 16-17, in this year, our expenses exceeded our revenues, so we had a drop in the ending fund balance. Okay, just some fingertip facts to take with you. If you don't remember anything about the presentation tonight, these are 5 things to remember about last year's budget. Our general fund budget is about $73 million. And enrollment last year was 3772. Our revenue last year increased by 5.8%. Our expenses increased by 4.9%. That's why we had an operational gain last year. And we have an increase in PERS and STIRS costs last year of over $1 million. So those are some fingertip facts to take with you tonight. Very quickly, and also I just want to share with the board, we talked about enrollment earlier. This has been the enrollment trend for the district over the last several years, and this is why we're going to get a demographer to come in and take a look at our enrollment and enrollment trends. So this is the current year number as of a couple days ago. This was last year, 3772. This year, we're about 3590. Just some information for the board. Very quickly, we want to look at our other funds. We have other funds other than the general fund. The cafeteria fund, looking at 1617, this is the ending fund balance from that year. We had a 207,000. We actually in 1718 had an operational deficit in the food service program, 149,000. We contributed money to cover that out of the general fund. And then last year we also had an operational negative of 252,000, and we contributed out of the general fund. So the current balance is 237,000, the ending fund balance in the food services account, but that's only because the general fund has been contributing in each of the last 2 years. This is our special reserve fund, Fund 17. This is where we keep our reserve for economic uncertainties. This is the interest we earned last year on that reserve. So the current balance is about $10.6 million. That's our reserve for economic uncertainties. Very quickly, this is Fund 21. These are our general obligation. This is Measure E and Measure BH. We had $181 million in 1617. That's Measure E. As we expended Measure E, it dropped to $163 million in 1718. We have an operational positive in 1819 of $120 million. And wow, where did this $283 million come from in 1819? We sold $160 million in Measure BH funds. So that's where that gain came from. Developer fees we collect as we have development in the city of Beverly Hills. Remember, developer fees was the pot of funds that we used for reconfiguration as we moved our schools around. So we did expend $1.4 million last year, or actually a little more than that. So our developer fee ending fund balance went from $6.9 million to $5.5 million at the end of 1819. And those were all planned expenditures. School facility state seismic. We expended this money on earthquake retrofit for Horace Mann, and those funds have been fully expended. Bond interest and redemption, we don't do anything with this fund. This is the county fund property taxes that are collected to service our bond payments. So even though we report it, we don't really manage that fund. Self-insurance, we take money out of the general fund to pay for our health and welfare benefits. This is really a pass-through fund. There's not much going on in that fund. Finally, retirement benefit fund. This is our OPEB trust fund that we set up. We set that up actually a couple of years ago, but we never had recorded the amount of funds that we transferred to our trust agent. So in talking to our auditors as we were closing the books, it really is appropriate for us to report that as cash with fiscal agent. So this will be the first year that we've actually reported that in our financials. Okay. Very quickly, just some information for the board about this current year. These are our current FTEs, not counting our hourly classroom IAs and other student workers. This is where we were in June with our Fund 1 FTE, 444. In August, 426, so we've reduced our number of FTEs by almost 18. Our biggest group of employees, as you all know, are our teachers. So our teaching staff, actually the FTE has gone down by about 16 FTE from last year compared to this year. So right here in this column is our 1920 adopted budget. We didn't make any changes to this so far. We are locked out of our budget, and we can't make adjustments until the county office approves our adopted budget. We expect them to do that in September. But right now, our concern as we look at our budget, as it's adopted, we're showing an operational deficit of $2.3 million. So we really have to dig into these numbers over the next month or two to see if this is really a true operational deficit. Because if it is, our reserve is going to decline and down to about 23% at the end of this year. And then if these numbers are true and we make no adjustments to our budget, our reserve would decline to under 20% in 2021. And the board does have a board policy to maintain 20%. So we're going to need to look into this as we move forward to see what adjustments we can make to actually have a balanced budget. So this is just the same kind of report you saw earlier. It's our revenues and our expenditures and the operational gain or loss. Just very quickly, some things that have happened since we adopted the budget in June. We've had some additional revenue. We've actually had a property tax from prior year of almost $900,000 that we weren't expecting. I think in July or so we talked about this additional SPED funding for preschool and AB 602. This number is actually about $100,000 more than we projected because of the way they calculated it. So we have additional revenue that's going to come in based on what we know now in the general fund of about $1.1 million. But we've actually had to add back some teaching staff and some support staff since the beginning of the year. So these numbers actually almost balance. The amount of additional revenue has been offset by the additional expenditures we're going to have to put into the budget. So what we're going to work on the next couple of months is we're going to work on food services. Because of that deficit of almost $300,000, we're going to need to do some surveying of our parents and students and see why they're not eating in the cafeteria. We want to talk about setting participation goals and explore some local partnerships and other methodologies to deliver food services. Of course, we're going to continue to work on our joint powers agreement with the City of Beverly Hills, looking at other revenue sources. Work with the Finance Committee on updating some of our board policies. And we're going to talk about our deferred maintenance plan in just a few minutes. So tonight we're asking the board to approve our unaudited actuals for last year. And then in October, we're going to present a draft version of the first interim report to the board. Usually you don't get the first interim report until December, but we think because there's a structural deficit currently reported, we need to bring information to the board and make our board budget adjustments a little more frequently. So we're going to bring that sometime in October to the board. So, Mr. President, any members of the board, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, let me go around. Thomas, anything? Okay. Mr. Spitz?
Yes, Mr. Roach, thank you for the report. It's comprehensive, and you've made it understandable. I do have a couple of comments and questions. I noticed, not from this presentation, but from the actual unaudited report, that the percentage of the cost of education expended for classroom compensation last year was 55.02%, and that is within a hair of a deficiency below the minimum, which is 55%. And so my first question on that is, do you have some concerns about that, and are you going to be looking at that carefully to be sure that we don't go below that 55% minimum limit?
Yes, trustee. One of the things that we'll need to do as we're developing the budget for next year is look at how we actually create our account codes. So that percentage is driven by how you code your expenses. So you could have an instructional expense that's coded incorrectly. So we have to make sure that we code all of our expenses correctly to capture all the expenses that are related to instruction.
I see.
So we need to look into that and make sure we're coding correctly. There has been a trend across the state of California, especially with community-funded districts and with increase in property taxes, where districts are falling out or falling below that required percentage. There's no fiscal impact to us directly, but if we go below that percentage, we'll get a letter from the County Office of Education saying, please look into this. But we're going to look first to make sure that we're coding our expenses correctly. And then if we are and we're still deficit, then we'll have to bring that issue back to the board.
Okay, thank you. As you pointed out in your presentation, with the budget increasing and enrollment decreasing, we're now at the point where our budget is over $19,000 per student, as you pointed out. Do you have any concerns or comments about a budget that is in excess of $19,000 per student?
I think as a community, we're fortunate to have $19,000 per student to expend on our student population. My concern is that a large portion of that is based on local funds from the City of Beverly Hills through our JPA. And our agreement with the JPA and the city only goes through this year. So one of the things that we would want to do is to make sure, if you go back to the presentation, is to make sure that during the next few months, we look at other ways to generate revenue for us in support of the JPA and support of the district. Usually you do not see that level of local contribution to a general fund unless you have an agreement with a city like a JPA or you have a local parcel tax. So this is almost like if you had a local parcel tax and it was expiring, you would have to make adjustments to your budget or find other revenues to support the district. So it is a concern, but there has been a history of the city and the district working together to support the school district. But we need to get on that right now.
Okay, that, you've already covered my next question, which was, which had to do with the local revenue, the question of how secure it is and what we need to do to make sure that we maintain it. Lastly, you mentioned a goal or objective of 20% reserves. I don't recall that we have that formally, but I would like to mention to you that the experts have told us that for a basic aid district, the minimum reserve would be preferable to have at least 25%.
As your CBO, I will not ever argue for a lower a lower reserve. I think it's very prudent. I think we've been fortunate in the last few years to have increasing property taxes, but eventually it's going to plateau and it may actually one of these days go down. So the reserve is the only thing that we have as a basic aid district or community funded district to cushion that impact on the budget so that the board and the community has time to reevaluate their budget and make any changes. But I am completely in agreement with the trustee that I think 20% is a minimum, 25% would be a goal. And I would be happy to work with the board to get something in policy to create a minimum.
Thank you.
Ms. Marcus.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Wade for that very clear explanation. Looking at the budget for the unaudited actuals, I think that it's acceptable. Unfortunately, we're still in a little bit of a deficit spending for the year, but I am also concerned about the numbers of students as the numbers keep dropping, and the amount of money we spend per child can go up. So I think that has to be something that we need to look at because it just makes sense that fewer students, more, and we're still with the same amount of money. We may have to do some thinking about the classes and so on. I'm interested, and it's going to come up about the maintenance and how much we're going to do with that, because that's something that we are in so much need of. It's not to be believed, and that's not been really included in this, so to speak. So I'm concerned about that. I just want to thank you again for coming on board and being able to get us up to speed so quickly. I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Roach, thank you so much for this comprehensive, detailed report, and I really appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation, and I also want to thank Mr. Spitz for raising the questions that the rest of us don't have to raise. And right. I'm very, very pleased to see for the first time that we've actually have made good use or have used our developer fees. I think that since I've been on the board, I don't think that was a discussion that we've always had, but it was something that we could never get to. And I think with reconfiguration, we were able to really adjust those costs against the developer fee budget and not touch the general fund, which I think was a very good thing for the board to do. And so I'm very pleased to see that, and I'd love to see how more we can continue to make good use of those dollars. So thank you.
Ms. Walker-Schuman, did you want to? Go ahead. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Roach. The couple of questions I had, you had mentioned something about food services. So, and looking at that, what are some of your thoughts on this topic? We have kicked this around for many, many years since I've been here. It always seems to be somewhere in the ballpark of, roughly an average of 200,000 contribution every year. The goal was to be, neutral in that program and not, we knew it wasn't a profit-making venture, but we constantly discussed going cost neutral, and yet even the years that we had tried to semi-privatize it, getting an outside vendor, it didn't bear fruit as well. So what are some thoughts? I mean, we have a lot of people up here from different districts and different experiences that might be able to actually shed some light on this.
Mr. President, I think first we need to probably survey our students and our parents to see what they like about the current program and what they dislike about the current program. We always have to remember that our clientele are our students, and if our students do not like the food, they're not gonna participate. We need to look at our facilities and see if they're conducive to running a self-op program. What we have right now is called a self-op. So we get the ingredients, we make the foods, or we buy prepackaged foods. But that's not the only model. You can be a self-op. You can have a management company. You run your program with your own employees. Or actually, you can have vended meals brought in. And I think you can look at all those different options. But I think, firstly, though, we need to survey our students and see why they're not participating. If we can break even, you're absolutely right. The goal is you're never going to make money in a food service program, but if you can break even, that's what you're looking for. So we just need to see what's happening. I think some of your lack of participation is related indirectly to our facilities and our construction that's going on, especially at the high school.
Okay.
It's with a close campus, you would expect more participation at the high school than we're seeing. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Okay, so I strongly encourage getting to the bottom of this sooner than later. I don't know if that is something that you need to wait for board direction to get started, or I am hoping that it is on its way. Good.
And we have already started.
Good.
So Mr. Roach and I met today. And certainly one of the concerns that I have is that there are a lot of students that are not eating. So it's not even just breaking even. We have students that are just not eating lunch. And that's a huge concern. So, we're already starting to look at some out-of-the-box ideas, looking at some other school districts, because we want to do better than just break even. We want to make sure that we're providing something that students will eat. Many of our students are here from 7 in the morning until late at night, like tonight. And so this is our responsibility to ensure that we're providing something that students have an opportunity to eat throughout the day.
So I would think in the survey, the question you might want to ask is, are the students not eating lunch, or are they not eating lunch here? Because, for instance, there are people that do, intermittent fasting, and they'll skip meals a day. They won't eat till 2 o'clock, things like that. So I think that's worth asking either all your students or your students are, do you eat lunch? Do you leave here and go eat lunch? You know, because if they're leaving campus at 1:10 anyway, they're not going to eat lunch here. We're not going to get those students. So, you know, and of course that's only the high school. It also extends to the other 3 campuses at this point. So, the other thing I wanted to say was the general fund changes with the additional revenue, additional expenses. There are what do you mean by staff leave replacement? On that, what does that specifically, that terminology refer to?
So on the additional expenses, this is where when we adopted the budget in June, we expected a certain configuration of classes, and as the children actually showed up and the master schedule was finalized, then you would find that you had a hole here, you had a hole there, you needed a 0.2 or a 0.4. So you've actually had to add staff, and for many of this is as an actual extra 0.2 or 0.4. It's not just a one teacher in one section.
No, I get that, but that's if it says teaching 1.2 FTE. But what about the actual terminology staff leave replacement? What does that mean?
Oh, I'm sorry, staff leave replacement. So that happens when one of our staff members goes on leave. So for a period of time, they continue to collect their own pay and benefits, but we have to backfill. So we have to hire a temp teacher to come in and backfill for.
That's okay. That
sorry,
I understand. I
right.
just never heard it, written this way.
Okay.
So that's fine. We're basically paying 2 teachers for 1 class.
Correct.
Okay. And then obviously I'll turn it over to you in a second, Tristan, and looking over, kind of sitting on the higher seats here and looking down at everything, programming, overall programming and legal are places where we can look at trying to control our expenditures. There's when you show us the pie charts, there's a certain amount of things we are not going to get away from, right? So the things that we can continue to look at, food services being one of them, but that I think is a minimal impact actually on the overall budget. But things that will have an impact if we really look at legal expenditures and our programming moving forward, and to see better ways to streamline, which I have to say that our reconfiguration has addressed a lot of these issues very well. So it would be hard pressed to find where are we going to try to find reductions in those expenditures. But I think it's continually worth the conversation and the hard look to see if we can actually find avenues for savings there. Tristan.
I want to echo my colleagues' comments. I think this is an incredibly thoughtful and complete presentation. I really appreciate how accessible all the information is. Just one thing I wanted to go back to clear up any misconceptions, because as far as I've been involved for the last couple of years, especially with the financials, there's a real misconception about what local property tax actually means. That does not mean just Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills can experience a 9% increase in the local property values. That doesn't mean that we see that in what we receive. It's a formula, and I just want to make sure everyone understands it's a formula of all of LA County. It's a very complex formula. So just because you see the property values rise in Beverly Hills does not mean that that is a proportionate increase in the local property tax revenue we receive.
Okay, so with that being said, colleagues, we do have a motion on the floor. So we were going to approve the unaudited actuals for 18 and 19. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, motion carries. Moving on to item 10C.
I want to move to adopt Resolution 2019-20-003, establishing Fund 14 for deferred maintenance.
I second.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on this? Mr. Spitz?
Yeah, I just want to lend my support to staff for setting this up. I think it's a very, very important thing to do. The board should understand that what we're doing is we're opening an account. We haven't yet put money into it. We don't know how much to put into it. But the point of this is to open the account, and I think that that's very, very important thing to do at this time.
Any other questions? Mr. Roach, you'll be coming back to us to discuss the actual numbers when we start setting this account up, I assume?
Yes, we expect before December, or by the time we present the first interim report, to have a report of deferred maintenance and actually have the 5-year maintenance plan to present to the board.
Terrific.
It will probably be shocking to the board and to the public because there's a great need for deferred maintenance here in this district. As you go around and look at the sites, there is a tremendous amount of infrastructure that needs to be replaced. Just to let the board know that. But we expect to be able to bring that number to the board by December.
One more question. When we do move some money into this fund, it's going to be coming out of our general reserve, will it not?
Correct.
So when we look at our general reserve now and we've got 22% or whatever it is, we must understand that the chances are that's going to be cut way down.
But for a good reason. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to professional and official business. Dr. Berge, is this?
So we had a great discussion at our last board meeting about the district motto and also having school mottos as well, individual school mottos. And we were asked to take back some information and some possibilities between some of the with the reconfiguration. We had come up with Education Reimagined as a district motto, a legacy of education reimagined, an educational legacy reimagined, reimagine a world-class education. And we were asked to just take it back and kick it around a little bit and see what worked best. What we're asking the board to do this evening is not to vote on a district logo that will come in time, but to vote on a district motto. And when we started to kick around all the words and really what the reflection would be where we are now with the work, we went back to look at our mission and vision. And we felt that Education Reimagined really was kind of timeless. It's where we are now and where we will be in 3 years and in 5 years. And so we didn't want to complicate the matter. We thought that that was a really good fit for us to keep a district motto of Education Reimagined. And so that is our recommendation to the board. We also had a conversation about each school having the autonomy and the opportunity to be able to have their own district or their own school site logo, like the high school, with Today Well Lived. So we bring you that recommendation tonight as we move forward, looking at our future and our strategic planning, that we would like to recommend to the board that we have a district motto that's called Education Reimagined.
Thank you, Dr. Berge. Can I get a motion then?
I will move for the adoption of a school motto, Education Reimagined,
District motto?
or district motto.
A second.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Ms. Marcus?
Just a couple things that went through my mind, and most of you know that I like very simple things. Less is always better, and it's less complicated. The only thing that went through my mind when you say Education Reimagined is that there was something missing to begin with. And I give a little trouble thinking there was something missing in our education. Maybe there was, but I got a little bit, that one sort of was a little bit difficult for me to comprehend. But I'm not opposed to the one that is being suggested. I like it. It's simple, and that's the way I feel.
Well, you did make the motion for it, so hopefully you're not opposed to it. Okay. thank you, staff, for going around and vetting this out a little bit. You know, it's funny, I look at the logo that's on here with the 5 intertwined colors. It's posted publicly, but to me, they either look like the square root sign reversed in 5 different colors, or some like origami snakes. So it's, if you look at it, but it's interesting.
Did it catch your eye?
Gets my eye. I look at it. Made you look. Yes. So, all in favor? Aye. There you go.
Thank you.
Now you take your motto and have fun. Okay. Thomas, comments from board members.
I just wanted to also thank Mr. Ellis for the BV Middle School program. The athletics, I forgot to mention him, so thank you. And
Mr. Spitz?
Yeah, I think most of us in the community are aware that tomorrow is September 11. To anyone who has not attended the annual commemoration of that date in front of the fire station, I highly recommend it. It's tomorrow. It's at 5:30 p.m. It's a half an hour event, and it's an important event, and it's inspirational. So I recommend to anybody listening that if you have a chance to be there.
Tristan?
I feel like the school year already is happening at warp speed, and I just want to recognize, now that we're in our 5th week, the monumental task is well underway. Clearly, everything is not perfect yet, but we're working on it, and I hope that our parents are seeing responsiveness, because I feel like as a board and in leadership at each of the campuses, we've really been responsive to parent observations and comments. And I want to thank our staff for working so hard all the time, especially the teachers in the classrooms these last couple of weeks while they're getting used to so many different locations, different, teaching partners and colleagues, and even with the LMS system, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of patience from a lot of different stakeholders. So I just want to recognize, as we get a little bit deeper into the school year, all of the patience, all of the support, all of the enthusiasm that we've been seeing, and thank everyone, and especially the community, for having such a positive outlook and really helping with the support. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Marcus?
Well, I have to tell you, as I move around the community and people talk about the reconfiguration in the middle school, there is nothing but positive feedback. I have yet to hear anybody talk negatively about the wonderful opportunities that our kids are getting in the middle school. It makes me feel good that everybody is really on board with it, and I think that's wonderful. I like to just point out that, of course, nothing is perfect at this point. There are problems that come out, but we will get solutions, and that's the most important thing. We will work for the solutions and make everything better. So I hope that the parents will take a note of that, and the administrators and all the teachers, that we're doing the best we can, and I thank them for all of their work.
Thank you. I wanted to say a couple things. First of all, the drama lab has their performance of War at Home starting tomorrow at 7 p.m., so you can still go to the 9/11 memorial and then go to the play if you wanted to, also on Friday and Saturday. That will be at Theater 40. Why do I know this? Because now we have a visual and performing arts calendar right on the website. Thank you very much, Ms. Starkins, for that. All of the departments and schools events are listed, from the middle school and the high school, instrumental, choral. All the dates and places that we have is in all one handy place. This is the first time this has happened. This is easily accessible right off BHUSD.org, and it says Visual and Performing Arts Calendar, so I'm very happy that we got that going. You both had mentioned the teachers involving in the reconfiguration, and I wanted to say that one of the things I like hearing is that people from areas of the district that were not exposed to some of the teachers that were at other schools that they would have never had now get to be in these teachers' classes. And it's a wonderful feeling to see them. And even though obviously not every teacher teaches everything all the time and not everybody is in every teacher's class, just that people from all over the district get to partake in some amazing teaching that's going on in our middle school now. And that's a huge plus in this whole reconfiguration. So thank you, everybody. Our next regular meeting is on the 24th of September. And with that, we will adjourn. Good night.
Thank you so much.